Hi, welcome to Dance Muse. I'm your host, Kristen Patton, and I'm very excited to introduce today's episode where I had the pleasure of speaking with the eloquent Nardia Boodoo. Nardia is in her 4th season dancing professionally with the Washington Ballet based in Washington, D.C. Today, we speak to Nardia about a very important concept that she learned from the legendary Arthur Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell was a mentor of Nardia's while she studied at the Dance Theater of Harlem. And this concept that she learned is that we represent something larger than ourselves. Nardia explains how, for her, as a young, talented, and successful ballerina of color, this has come to mean that when she steps on the stage, she's not just representing herself, but she's representing all dancers of color. And for her, that inspires her not only to be her best self, but to give back as well. Please enjoy this truly inspiring conversation with Nardia Boodoo.
I pretty much immediately fell in love with dance. I always thought it was going to be my profession. I felt most encouraged when I attended summer intensives at the Dance Theater of Harlem and sort of gained favor with Arthur Mitchell. And he became a mentor of mine from that point on. But it wasn't until I was a trainee at the Joffrey School in Chicago where I was selected to perform in the corps of Don Q. And I was the last dryad to sort of bore off stage into the wings. And it was an opening night, and I, for a moment, felt this overwhelming sense of this is where I belong, and kind of caught the official bug or performing bug as the fog rolled in and the light was on me. So I always knew I was going to make it, but it wasn't until that moment that I was determined to make it.
So you mentioned you trained at the Dance Theater of Harlem and were mentored by the legendary Arthur Mitchell. Can you tell us just a little bit about what it was like to work with him and to train at that school?
Mr. Mitchell had an enormous presence. You could not look at him. So he also could make or break your career as a dancer of color. And I absorbed everything that he had to offer, but also he was very serious. He wanted to preserve the art form, but also make it inclusive for people who probably wouldn't be considered, especially the girls. You know, when you're young and someone like that, of that stature, believes in you and kind of gives you that stamp of approval, it's everything. So I think for some dancers, it would be working under, I guess, George Balanchine. And for a lot of dancers of color, having Mr. Mitchell's stamp of approval was everything. So
that's amazing. I did read that he helped, he encouraged you with a very important idea that you represent something bigger than yourself. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that has come to mean to you, perhaps from the time that thought entered your mind and maybe what it means to you today?
So much of being a ballerina is often image-based. And a lot of the times you're portraying a character more so than yourself. So that kind of precedes how people perceive you. And so when a dancer of color, particularly a Black girl, steps on stage, she represents all of the dancers of color. So my success is our success, I think, and that's how I sort of interpreted that. And, you know, he was very big on, you're a precedent, you are an example, and when younger girls see you on stage, they see themselves in you. So you kind of have this responsibility to not only be your best self and best dancer, but also to give back.
And I'm glad you bring up that point. I also read that it became important to you as your career developed that sometimes there were individuals who were influencing you to more traditional paths for a dancer of color, perhaps to a contemporary dance or to those very instrumental organizations like the Dance Theater of Harlem that traditionally foster dancers of color's careers and that heritage, which is really important for us to have in society. But you didn't want to be limited. You wanted to find your own path and what was right for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, so at the time, I couldn't wait until I was 18 to join the Dance Theater of Harlem. However, the Dance Theater of Harlem was sort of disbanded, so it didn't exist in the same way. So it kind of left lots of girls of color to pursue other avenues of employment in the career. So it wasn't necessarily an active choice because Dance Theater of Harlem has always been a very high-level, world-renowned company. And to this day, I sort of wish that he was still around and I was in the company in its heyday. I feel like I would have probably had a better experience. Luckily, most of the places that I have attended for summer intensives and trainee programs and even studio company programs, I was there because I felt wanted and there was a need, and I never sort of felt I was there because of the color of my skin. Unless I was being very naive, but I like to believe that I was there because I'm a good dancer. And so often I feel like there's a lot of energy and talk around me as a dancer of color because of the rarity. And then there's a little bit of a little sadness because I wish I could just only speak about my dancing and my career, just like my contemporaries. But then it goes back to that thing that they always said, which was, you represent something bigger than yourself. And so it's nice to just step into it and own it. And I feel like that is what time away from the theater and the stage has allowed me to do. Sort of accept that, no, this is your responsibility as a dancer of color. And to continue to speak and own it will better the next generation and myself.
And that's what's so important in carving those paths for people who are on the path forward. What has your experience been? So the last year has been a difficult year in a number of different ways. It's been almost a full year that we're here in a pandemic and the arts have been very much on hold. There's also been a lot going on in this world, which is good and bad, that we are having a lot more conversations. I think the conversations were always there, but we're talking about injustices that are happening racially. And I'm curious, in the world of dance, for any types we're talking a little bit about diversity and inclusion. In the dance industry, do you see any changes happening with that with regard to race, with gender, with socioeconomic status? What's been your experience and what are you seeing?
So it was very hard initially because you kind of had to express all of the things that you have been feeling and observing about this sort of quote-unquote invisible system that is designed to keep Black and brown people kind of disenfranchised. It's not meant to be seen, it's not meant to be noticed, it's supposed to just be the way it is. So to be able to, or figure out the language, let alone to express what's been going on and how my experience is very different than my contemporaries, was initially very hard as a dancer. We're trained to sort of do and not say, and it's a silent art form. We don't talk. So it was hard for me to build that muscle of being able to be like in a place where I could express. But those conversations were much needed. So I like to think of companies as the dancers, the performers, but I think the people that hold the power within companies think of a ballet company as more of an institution. So I've seen a lot of changes within institutions, ballet institutions, but within the dance companies, COVID's kind of in the way. We can't really be in the studio to see, effective change. It hasn't really been a great time to implement it. It's been more so a time to discuss and sort of figure it out. I'm eager myself to kind of experience that as well. It seems like things are going in a better direction because of the very hard conversations that Black dancers are having and choosing to have, really, with their directors and those who, direct the rehearsals. So within my own company, our director opened the doors and realized that the culture within ballet is problematic and why. And a lot of it had to do with equity. And so when I think of equity, I think of sort of a meme that I saw online where it was like a tall man and two shorter people trying to look over the fence. And the next slide was what equity looks like. And some people had little crates under their feet to help them see over the fence, and someone had one crate. So equity is giving everyone the tool that they need to succeed. And so how does that translate to ballet specifically? I would have to say something called legacy casting. So typically legacy casting is when it's like typecasting. So if Aurora originally was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, all those after her will be blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And so when someone who looks like me with long, brownish, black, curly hair, there is no real example of an original role, classically at least, where the girl looks like me. And that sort of gets in the way. And with dancers, casting kind of opens your horizons and builds your vocabulary and highlights your strengths, makes you develop better aspects of yourself as a performer. And if you don't get those opportunities, you're kind of pigeonholed and put into a box. So I think that was like the biggest factor for me.
What advice might you have for an individual who might be a little bit hesitant, might have something in their head that they think that they're very passionate about going after? What might help ignite their spark to go after that passion?
I would have to say to kind of just do it, kind of immerse yourself in everything. The biggest trepidation would be sometimes if something scares you, that means you should do it. And yeah, just do it. I think the first step is just immersing yourself in it.
That's great. We hope that everyone will take that chance and go for it. So outside of dance, you are also very active in your modeling career, and you are taking college courses. Can you tell us a little bit about what both of those experiences are like and what they mean to you right now?
So college has always been a goal of mine, and I'm so grateful that there are programs like the LEAP program through St. Mary's College of California. Essentially, the program is a BA program, and you mostly meet up through Zoom, and you take the core curriculum of that college, and they use your performing experience as credits as well, which is amazing because I mean, as a dancer, you have a lot of skills that are applicable to the real world in that sense. And also, you don't really have all day to sit in class and to work on papers and papers. So you kind of can take as many courses as you want or as few as you need to get to your goal, and they work with you. You are definitely working for a high level degree of whatever you're choosing to go for. So I'm happy. I like it. It's a lot of hard work, and it's kind of forcing me and challenging me to use my brain in other ways outside of dancing and exploring my other talents as well, while furthering my dance career.
The Washington Ballet, what space does that hold in your heart? How has it been to work with the Washington Ballet in Washington, D.C.? What's that like for you?
I love dancing at the Washington Ballet. It's a smaller company. It's still not tiny, but it's not like a huge company. So there are lots of performance opportunities. And because it's unranked, our director sort of doesn't stick to that these are the principles and these are the core, you are expected. There's a lot of intermixing in that way, which is amazing, especially as a young dancer when you're looking for opportunities to grow as an artist. I love the rep that we do. We do a lot of contemporary, also quite a bit of classical. I feel so at home here because I started as a trainee and I matriculated into the studio company. I did leave for my apprentice year, but I came back, and I'm so happy that I did because I just feel like I fit better in here.
That's wonderful. That's so important to have a sense of belonging, not only in your workplace, which is what that is, but in the city that you live in, and to be able to enjoy all of it at this time of your life is such a special thing. So I'm glad that's such a great experience for you. So I'd love to know what's next for you. What's on the horizon?
So right now we're kind of in a transitionary zone with the Washington Ballet. We're gearing up to get back to the studios and to do some in-house choreography. And that will be filmed. So I'm excited for that. I'm just ready to get back to dance and to feel like a ballerina again.
That's wonderful. I think we're all anxious, and we're hoping this, in DC, when those cherry blossoms bloom, it's a time of rebirth and it's a time of renewal. And I hope that that's the case for the company and for your dancing and for the arts this year as well. And that we're all going to see a little bit of a return and a renaissance come this spring and summer and fall, and that you'll be dancing long into the future. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners as a last thought?
I would just like to say thanks for having me, and this is a really fun conversation, and I look forward to more.
Well, thank you so much, Nardia. It's been a complete delight to speak with you, and I'm sure that getting to hear a little bit more about your journey or your path, if that can help spark anyone just a little bit along their path and to inspire them to follow their dreams as you have. It's been a good day. So thank you for joining us. We'd like to invite you to follow Nardia on her Instagram account. You can find her at Narstar, and it's STARR with 2 R's. Keep a lookout for all of the exciting things that she has coming up. And I'd also like to invite you to catch up and see if you'd like to be notified of following episodes that we have for Dance Muse. Please do like and subscribe below. And until then, we will see you next time. Thank you, Nardia. Have a great afternoon.